find something you want to do.
I know what I want to do.
What's that?
Be a mother.
We can have a kid.
When can we?
Just as soon as I get that chief of police appointment.
You mean that, Troy? You're not just saying it?
I don't lie, Lola.
If you love listening to this show, please consider giving a rating and a review on Amazon Alexa or wherever you listen. We want to continue bringing you this amazing content, and part of our ability to do that means that we need a big audience. Now, it may not seem like much, but rating and reviewing the show will help more people find us, just like how you found this show. Simply on any podcast platform, search for a show, scroll down to the bottom, and push 5 stars. It's that easy. Thanks for supporting the show. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Asli Samanci, who is the CEO and founder of Bee&U, which is a provider of natural bee products. Welcome to the show today.
I'm very happy to be with you today.
Great, thank you. So maybe we can start with maybe a personal story around some of the products that you guys are developing and how that aligns with your son.
That's actually this story of how I became an entrepreneur. My first son, he was having high body fever nearly every month, 2 or 3 times. And this started when he was just 11 months old. And we started giving him a lot of antibiotics to recover the problem. And my mother is a pediatrician, and my father is also a doctor. But they couldn't understand why this was happening because there was nothing seen. He was okay with the inner organs, but he was having this high body fever problem occasionally. And this lasted for 5 years. When he was 5 years old, he developed another case, which is called Henoch-Schönlein vasculitis. Did you ever heard about that before? Yeah, this was the time when I heard about this disease the first in my life. And it was really threatening because it's the inner bleeding of the body on itself. It's an autoimmune disease. The body is bleeding under the skin. And this body is doing this on its own. So it's really horrible for a mother. And it's also really horrible for a child of 5 years old. We visited 18 different pediatricians, and the last one, he said this is caused by the immune system. And he has a low immune system. The number of immunoglobulins in the blood is half than a normal 5-year-old boy. So we have to improve his immune system. When we improve it, the high body fever will go away, and plus this inner bleeding problem will go away. Then I asked the doctor, because I'm a food scientist, and I was thinking that I was feeding him very naturally. So I was carrying him very naturally. He said, hey, Asli, why don't you give him a royal jelly and propolis? Because I was working in the field of beekeeping and bee products. My Master of Thesis degree is about honey, authenticity of honey. But I didn't work with propolis until that time. This was 10 years ago. And I said to the doctor, there are products out there on the market with propolis added in. But most of the products out there on the market is produced and coming out of China, and most of them are not authentic. So I couldn't trust the products. he asked me, why don't you produce yourself? Because my husband is an agricultural engineer and he is a beekeeping specialist. And actually, we are experts in the field, but we were only working with honey. This question turned us to be entrepreneurs. Because we were, until that time, we were working for a big honey packaging company. Then, after this happened in our life, we decided to become entrepreneurs, and we decided to set up our own company. Then we started calling the beekeepers. Do you produce propolis? Most of them said that they don't know what it is. They don't produce it. Some of them said that they produce it, but nobody buys from them. So that's why they don't produce. Then we asked one beekeeper, can you produce for us? Because this is very, very important for the health of our son. When they produce propolis, propolis is like a stone. It's mixed with beeswax. You cannot digest it. Our body cannot digest it in its raw form. It needs extraction. You have to turn it into a drop. So that's what I did. I extracted propolis from the raw form to the extract form in my own lab for my son. And I started giving him propolis extract, and I also started giving him royal jelly. Royal jelly is like the mother milk of the bees. They produce it for the baby bees, for the larvae in the hive. But it's such a strong substance that it has 10-hydroxydecanoic acid and also royalactin, very special compounds which are not found in any other food naturally. So it's a super functional food, natural super functional food. So I also started giving that royal jelly to my child, collecting from we also asked our beekeeper to produce it for us. So I started giving it mixed with raw honey to my child. And after 6 months, we were analyzing the number of immunoglobulins in his blood every month. And it was when we started, it was 400. And after 6 months, it passed over 800. So doubled the number of immunoglobulins, the immune cells in his blood, it was doubled. And we were not able to use any drugs because drugs were making the inner bleeding case worse. So we only just feed him naturally, and we only just give him propolis extract and royal jelly and raw honey. And when I see this, let's say, magic of the nature that was on my child, I decided to set up my own company to start production of propolis. Then, as a food scientist, I applied to the Istanbul Technical University Technology Development area. There was an incubator there for R&D project, because we were needing an R&D project first to start good quality with high yield propolis and to turn it into natural products where people can use naturally the propolis extract. We had to develop this propolis extraction method.
Okay, so let me, if I may interject, and this will help us to have a dialogue. Well, first of all, certainly as a mother and as a parent, having to see a child have to go through such difficulties is heartbreaking. And certainly, I've had some pretty poor immune system growing up, and I know, what that has in terms of implications as an adult. So very serious indeed. So thank you for sharing that story. For those that are listening, maybe not as familiar with some of these things, maybe we'll go into a little bit of depth around this. Propolis, or bee glue, I guess, to your point, is kind of this resin-like mixture that the honey actually produces, and it's kind of a mixture of saliva with the beeswax that gathers, when they collect from the tree buds and sapphiros and so forth. And it actually, I guess, acts as a sealant to kind of cover some of those open spaces in the hive. Now, it's interesting because it does have a lot of different uses, whether it's in kind of a varnish, as a varnish ingredient, in string instruments like violins, for example, and as well as even ingredient to like a chewing gum, for instance. Now, I think
Yeah,
one of the things that's
in its raw
important.
form, it's like a chewing gum.
Yes. Now, one of the things that is important to note is you mentioned the refined quality, but also the region where it's sourcing from, because it's a natural product. Depending on where you actually get the source, the propolis can contain different types of compounds, whether it's cyanopenic acid or the isoferric acid or caffeic acid and so forth. So it's going to vary in different levels, right? Now,
Yeah,
maybe we could talk a little bit about, again, I think it's a little bit kind of abstract in terms of how it's actually working, but talk to us about specifically the antibacterial properties, as well as specifically impact to the immune system. Now, the caveat that I would, of course, give is that, at least according to our research, at least from a medical use, there isn't any sufficient evidence that there is this medical grade effectiveness to any particular condition. But again, I think we're talking about it from a supplement perspective, correct?
yeah, well, in its raw form, you are right, because the body cannot digest it. At the university, we tested the raw propolis, how much of the antioxidants in it are synthesized by the body. Only 2% of the antioxidants in the propolis can be digested by the body. So this is proven by analytical data. So it needs extraction. You have to get rid of the beeswax, and you have to get the resin part out of the raw propolis. The resin part is a very, very strong antioxidant, and there are very special phenolics and flavonoids in it, which bees collect from the buds of the trees, buds, stems, and parts of the trees. So it's a natural antioxidant, but it's very strong. We can compare it, let's say, pomegranate. It has 80 times more antioxidants compared to pomegranate. Pomegranate is a very natural antioxidant source, but propolis has 80 times more, and the phenolic profile is totally different. So these special phenolics and flavonoids, we have to get them in a standardized form, in an extract, like a drop. Our products, if you go and check from bnu.com, you can see that we have propolis, special propolis extract, water-soluble one, the alcoholic-soluble one, the mixtures with raw honey, and also royal jelly. We have tablet forms, syrups. We use only extracted propolis in all of our products. We have more than 60 SKUs right now. Because we have propolis so strong, these antioxidants, they have also antibacterial power, antiviral effects, antifungal effects, anti-carcinogenic effects, and anti-inflammatory effects at the same time. And because we have this very strong substance in our hand, we don't need to use any preservatives, colorants, any added substances in any of our products. When we put propolis in a product, it has its own shelf life due to the antioxidant and antimicrobial effects of propolis.
So if I may pause you here, because we're on a climate change podcast, I want to integrate this into the topic at hand that's broader for us, which is there's a couple of dimensions for us to explore. One is the role of bees and the importance of bees as far as the ecosystem and the health of plants and agriculture. And then the other aspect is that, again, I want to be very cautious how I say this, is that I think generally when we're exposed to micropollutants and just things like microplastics that's in our systems and so forth, it has over time kind of a deteriorating effect on our bodies and certainly our immune system. So I want to explore from the perspective of the environment from the bee side, but also how such a compound like propolis can actually help us to strengthen our immune system as we're regularly being attacked by essentially the pollutants that are out there.
Well, I have been working with bee products like 25 years. My doctorate and my master of thesis degree is also about bee products. And I have tested many times the contaminants out there in the bee products, not only propolis, also royal jelly, honey. Of course, there is a risk. There is a risk that the Bee products can be contaminated with pesticides or contaminants like heavy metals out there from the environment. So the bee production, the production of bee products has to be done in regions free of any pesticides. It has to be away from railroads, for example. It has to be away from regions where there are factories and where there are possible contaminants around. It has to be done in a natural environment. That is why we started our production with contracted beekeeping model. We directly work with contracted beekeepers. This is also called ethical, let's say, fair trade, because there are no middlemen. We directly contract the beekeeper. They only produce for us. And we also test their production conditions. We also control their production conditions. We control the environment where they place their hives. They have to place their hives in a very natural environment, away from any possible contaminants, and and there should be also clean water sources around so that the bee products are clean. And they shouldn't apply any beekeeping, let's say, drugs or other things. They have to apply good beekeeping practices. We contract them, they produce for us, we give them guarantee to buy, and we also support them to sustain their business. So this is a sustainable beekeeping model.
So I feel that I probably haven't done a very good job explaining what my questions were. So I'll try it again one more time. Let's maybe just break it up into one at a time. So first of all, the role of bees and the pollination to the health of regenerative farming and our environments, broader environments. Can you talk about that first?
The role of the bees is so important for the world. If bees will get lost, humanity will get lost. There is a saying they say it's from Einstein, if bees will get lost, humanity will get lost within 4 years. Maybe this is too aggressive, but it's true, because 80% of all the plants are pollinated by bees. This means if bees will get lost, 60% of all the food on the market will get lost by time, which are pollinated by bees. The legumes, all the fruits, vegetables, whatever we eat from the plants, they will get lost, definitely. So this will affect everything. This will change the environment in the world, and this will change the living conditions of the humanity. So we have to save bees. We have to increase their numbers. That's why we apply this sustainable beekeeping model. Every product we sell on the market, 1% of what we gain from each product, we collect it on top of what we pay for them for the product. We pay it back as an extra bonus to our beekeepers every year. Like beekeeping equipment, so that they can grow their business, sustain their business. They have more bees. They start, if they let's say if they have 100 beehives, we want them to have 200 beehives next year. So this is a sustainable beekeeping model, and this is
So let's talk about what are the biggest threats to bees. What are the things that's man-made that's destroying bees?
Well, so much. First of all, the industry, the new developments, the technology, these are very, very good and very necessary for development, but most of them, they affect the bees. Industrialization, for example, the green areas are getting lost by time. We have more and more less green areas because we cut the trees. As humans, we cut the trees, we change the nature. This is a big problem. Climate change is another big problem because some areas, they are getting dry. There is no water. Some areas will be underwater by time. Now there are green and there is soil, but within some years they will be underwater. So this climate change is a big problem for the bees too. The temperature of the world is getting hot every year. So this is also a big problem. This is also causing the climate change too. So these are not only, but there is also the pesticides, the application of pesticides in the fields, in green areas. This is a big problem too. Application of beekeeping drugs, the veterinarian drugs. This is another big problem for against bee diseases like varroa, like nosema. There are bee diseases that the beekeepers are trying to solve, but the drugs that they are applying is lowering the immune system of the bees. This is another problem too. So we can count a lot of problems at the same time. Even the telecommunication, the signals out there in the air is affecting the signals of the bees, because they are also talking to each other with their signals. So they are sometimes mixing the signals, and bees cannot find their hives and they get lost. I can tell you a very interesting story. In 2007, when the beekeepers opened their hives, they saw that the bees were lost. They were lost. They didn't die. They were not in the hive. They were lost. This was because of the losing of their signals. They talk to each other and they find their hives. They find the sources of nectar by their signals. If there are other signals blocking their signals, so that they cannot talk to each other and they cannot do their job, they cannot collect propolis, royal jelly, pollen, and raw honey from the nature. This is a very serious problem too. So when we are, as humanity, when we are doing something, we should also think about what are we doing to the nature and what will happen in the future to us, to humans. So we should think very carefully about that.
That's a fascinating story about this notion of electromagnetic impact, this notion of various types of spectrum frequencies that's interfering with their communication, and how that's affecting their ability to not only find their home, but also to do what they do from a productivity. I want to come back to this notion, and I want to be really careful how I phrase it, is that the very things that are affecting the lives of bees and really their ability to thrive and survive and multiply is also in many ways affecting humans. Would you agree? And I wonder if those very things that you mentioned, everything from pollutants, contaminants, to just even noise pollution, how is that effectively potentially causing harm to our immune system? And again, I want to caveat that there's going to be a whole spectrum of studies that's going to be highly specialized and focused. So I don't want to put a blanket assumption or statement out there that these external factors lower our immune system per se, but it does have some contributing factors, right? So talk to us about how, in your opinion, over let's say the century since the first industrial revolution, how as a human immune system do you feel it has become more compromised?
Well, you know that my mother and father, they are doctors too. So, well, this is a big discussion. Yes, the immune system of the humans are maybe not getting all the time down, but it's getting different. Like, for example, babies are being born with allergies. Why? There is so much cancer. Cancer is like influenza right now. It's like a flu. It's like a cold. So our immune system is changing, but the life of the humans is also longer and longer. When we compare it with the past, because of the developments in the medical science, the life of the humans is getting longer. Yeah. Now there is pandemic, and this is a really horrible situation right now. But if we compare past and now, medical science, the development of the medical science is very good. But the development of other things that you mentioned, pollutants, noise, too much movement, which we cannot do right now, but we were doing that in the past. I was flying twice a week, for example, internationally. Maybe you were the same. Not now. We have to stop where we are right now. We have to. But everything is affecting our immune system. It's changing our body. And it's like, I think our genes are changing. Not only the immune system, everything. The codes of our genes is changing with the nature, with the world. It's like the climate change. Our body is also adapting to the new situation. Is it good? Somehow it's very good because some people is living longer and longer, which can adapt. Which cannot adapt the situation. They are having a lot of chronic diseases. Chronic, and it starts when they are born, like my son. So the immune supporters, the natural immune supporters like royal jelly, like propolis. By the way, propolis it's nothing new. Bees have been producing propolis, royal jelly, and honey the last 20 million years, and humanity has used it in medicine, medical science, many times in the ancient times. For example, Egyptians, they have prescriptions with propolis, especially on skin, on burns and cuts. They were using propolis. For example, Hippocrates, the father of the medical science, he was also using bee products. This is nothing new, but we are recovering sometimes again these natural products from the nature again and again by time.
That's right. And just to recap, is that I think what we're talking about is this, something that's very familiar to us. The bees and the honey and just the natural things that they produce. And what we're finding out is that bees themselves are in imminent danger because of what we're doing. And that certainly is attributed to climate change as well. And then those same things that's affecting climate change is also affecting our immune system potentially as well. And I think what we're talking about when we specifically call out propolis is this notion of high quality, high purity, natural supplement that the nature itself provides that we can actually use as a supplement to enhance our immune system. I think that's what we're talking about. Is that correct? How can people find out more about BNU?
You can go and check our website, bnu.com.
So with that, I've been joined by Dr. Asli Samanci, who is the CEO of BNU. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to rate our show on any podcast platform that you listen to. Scroll down to the bottom and push 5 stars. It's that easy. And as always, thanks for listening.